really appreciated and respected Kamala Harris for saying Trump is a fascist. Trump has told us every single thing about himself, his desire to keep any brown and black people out of the country, his interest in more immigrants from places like Norway. He calls brown and black native countries shithole countries, right? He courts the republics like in Hungary, where they're all about white Christian nationalism. I mean, he tells us over and over again that the enemy within is anybody who is not him and doesn't want to hand over their choices and their wishes to him. It is a cult of personality.
Welcome back to Trailblaze. I'm Jamal Simmons.
I'm Nayyera, and we are here once again to talk about the America we're becoming. Jamal, the America we're becoming as a result of this election. I don't feel great about it, regardless of who wins. I'll tell you. I mean, I definitely have a preference of Kamala Harris will uphold rule of law and democracy. It's what she's done her whole career. But that doesn't solve for some of these bigger challenges that we're facing in the United States right now.
Oh, it doesn't solve for it at all. I think what we're really wrestling with, as we've talked about this 1,000 times, is, what kind of society are we going to have, and how are people going to make money, and how are we all going to live together, and are we going to value each other? Are we just going to, sort of attack each other and bring each other down? I think we really are wrestling with huge questions that no democracy, no country has ever had to wrestle with before.
And part of wrestling with it, right, is acknowledging the reality that you have. I feel like for so long in the last administration, it was about returning to civility. But a lot of civility requires covering up what is really happening and pretending and telling certain groups of people that their experiences don't matter because the civility matters more. I really appreciated and respected Kamala Harris for saying Trump is a fascist. Trump has told us every single thing about himself, his desire to keep any brown and black people out of the country, his interest in more immigrants from places like Norway. He calls brown and black native countries shithole countries, right? He courts the republics like in Hungary, where they're all about white Christian nationalism. I mean, he tells us over and over again that the enemy within is anybody who is not him and doesn't want to hand over their choices and their wishes to him. It is a cult of personality. We've seen that again and again in history. I'm so glad that she called it for what it is, because I'm glad also that the former White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, and other military experts and other foreign policy experts have quietly said he's a fascist. This is what he wants. But for somebody who's going to be commander in chief, being able to call out and recognize the challenge and the threat posed is step number one. And I wish it had happened earlier, but I am glad it happened in front of millions of people on CNN last night.
Yeah, it's got to happen. Obviously these guys, they should have stepped up a long time ago. Maybe we could have gotten all this done had they just impeached Donald Trump after he helped those people attack the Capitol. He would have been forbidden from even running for president, and we could be having a normal presidential campaign between, some Mitt Romney type Republican and, Gretchen Whitmer. Right. Or
right.
Kamala Harris or whoever it is that may have emerged from, a Democratic primary process, because we wouldn't have felt the same need to run Joe Biden again. I think part of the math about Joe Biden was, look, he's an older white guy with appeal in Scranton, Pennsylvania. So let's put him on the ballot again and see if we can just, stave off disaster one last time. It's like the last ride of a great, TV or movie series. Right. But
I hate this idea
that he wasn't really ready for it.
Oh, I also hate this idea that, well, democracies, we don't do that in America. No. You were supposed to hold people accountable for breaking the law. You don't go after people for their political opinions. Absolutely. Trump broke the law. It was proven multiple times. Bolsonaro in Brazil, out. They're like, sorry, exiled. You cannot run for office again. Right. South Korea, like these are fully functioning, robust democracies. They prosecute political leaders who take their power and do wrong things with it. Like, it's actually not that complicated. And I think this is, once again, the complaint about liberal elites. overthinking, getting caught up in your head, the idea of, well, if we want to uphold rule of law, we can't actually acknowledge the fact that somebody has taken a truck through every loophole that has been available in our legal system. So instead of fixing the system, they just wanted to, it's like burying their heads and they could pretend their way through change. So yes,
So
I have been a fan of change. I still get worked up about the fact that it's taken this long for a sense of change and desire for change and calling out what is wrong, when other people have felt more than happy insulting us and calling us out as wrong the entire time.
Yeah, I do think I do have one caution here, which is that for me, I think it needs to be an egregious error, right? It has to be something that is
insurrection.
Exactly, like an insurrection
That's
or
what
a
I
violation
mean.
of, a violation of a norm. It can't be, obviously it can't be Bill Clinton perjuring himself about an affair, right? Or George W. Bush did something that was in his official duties, which I disagree with, like a war in Iraq, right? Like I thought it was a bad move, it was a bad strategic move. It was questionable on the international law front.
He lied.
All
He lied to the
he lied
international
to
community.
people, but I'm not sure you want to put somebody in
No,
jail for that because they're
no.
executing their job responsibility in a way that I disagree with. This is different when you say I am going against the Constitution and I'm going to an extra constitutional process. I'm going to unleash a horde of people onto the United States Congress to stop a lawful functioning of government. That's the part where I think you have to step in. You have to step in and start to put in a legal sanction that could result in the president of the United States either being jailed or certainly being impeached to the point where he can't run for office again.
And to be clear, Bolsonaro fomented an insurrection, and they had a march on parliament of his supporters trying to take over their parliament or their congressional building. That is why he was barred from continuing to run for office again. Right?
Yeah. So this raises
South
a question
Korea,
for
she
me.
stole like stealing money from your country. Like these are right. This idea of a higher standard for the people who are in office. But you were going to say something. I interrupted.
No, I was on with one of our favorite Republicans on CNN yesterday, and I asked him the question. He ducked the answer, but I asked him the question. In the summertime, we saw Joe Biden have one of the world's worst debate performances, right? It was probably clear in that moment, maybe Joe Biden wasn't the best person to lead the country for the next 4 years. We weren't quite sure if he was up to the job. And Democrats took it upon themselves. Democrats, risked their reputations. They risked their relationships. They went out and they said things that to bring the president out of the nomination and say, you know what, he might not be the best person for us to lead the country. And obviously he left. Joe Biden did the heroic thing. He left. Kamala Harris comes in and we're running the campaign we have. Isn't there a point for Republicans where they find out that the guy says, I'm willing to be a dictator on day one. The guy says, we've got to unleash perhaps the military on enemies from within. We're going to unleash the FBI and the IRS on my political opponents. We've got to straighten out the press and we maybe put some of them in jail if they don't reveal their sources. And then we find out that he's a devotee of Hitler, right? And he wants to have generals like Hitler. At some point, where is the point where the Republicans say, I like his policy. I thought what he was doing with the country and economically maybe was the right thing, or some other thing that they've sort of concocted about why they support him. And they finally just say, you know what? This guy should not be president of the United States.
Jamal,
and even though I like some of the stuff he did, I'm out.
Jamal, I think a bunch of people tried, right? The never Trumpers, right? There's a reason why we're in the upside down universe where the Cheneys and Kamala Harris are together. Now, setting aside, I don't think that's moving or bringing out the base to see, right? Like that's right. But it wasn't meant to. It's that idea of pointing out this is a particular moment in time and what's happened here. This is the MAGA's taken over, and their whole point is that they want the authoritarianism. They want to be able to tell everybody else what to do, right? The only boundary is don't tell me. I don't want to have any limits on me, but I want to be able to do to you whatever I feel like is right in the moment, right? That's what they want that. To pretend that it's a delusion or an accident, that's the part that the folks who appear with us on cable television don't say out loud. They're okay with it. They're perfectly okay with it
They're okay
because they
with
think
it. And
it'll
I gotta
benefit
tell you,
them.
it's
It'll benefit
sometimes
them.
hard. I gotta say, maybe you have this experience. It's sometimes hard to sit here calmly and then have like the post debate
Yeah.
chatter and banter with people who I'm like, you're signing on to the destruction of the democracy. You're signing on to people not being able to have their rights anymore. You're signing on to people like me and other who won't be able to be full citizens of the country. But we're supposed to sit here and like chop it up in the green room and
Yeah,
laugh about
we're supposed to
Love
play
Island
this.
and, you know,
Yeah.
whatever else
Well,
thing is
we're
on
supposed to
television.
play this game that it's only that politics is only politics and you can have all these discussions about it and that it never actually hits people personally. Right.
Right.
I mean, I remember sitting next to Trump's campaign chairperson from Pennsylvania and him talking about the Muslim ban. And I just turned around and looked at him and I said it on live television. I was like, you do realize you're talking about me and my family, right? And he's like, well, no, guys, I know, just want me to be clear. These are not theoretical people you're talking about. It's me and my family. And I just sat there and looked at him and he was like, didn't know what to say. The host got uncomfortable and they switched the topic.
And it
But
should
that's
be uncomfortable.
real. It
Right.
should be.
It should
Sit
be
with that
uncomfortable.
for a minute. You're talking about you are voting for and enacting policies that impact your neighbors, that impact people you socialize with and work with. At least have the balls to say, I don't care about you. Say it to my face then. I don't care what happens to you.
Right. And that's why you have to respect, you started this off talking about the vice president calling Donald Trump a fascist, because it is about labeling it in public. It is about making sure everybody knows what we're signing up for. Look, the country may decide to make a choice. What they cannot say is that we did not present them the result of the choice, right? And so the danger, though, for the rest of us is the ignorant ass, choices that could get made over the course of this campaign could result in people that we know being under extraordinary duress, and maybe even ourselves, right? Because there's no guarantee at what point Donald Trump will say, if he is given this sort of authoritarian power, the Supreme Court says he can't be prosecuted for anything he did as president. So then at what point does he decide, like, oh, I don't really like you guys anymore, you have to go, or we're going to unleash the hounds of the government upon you? He said this about Comcast, he's going to go, or CBS, that he wants to stop what they're doing because he doesn't like the way they broadcast the news. This is a dangerous time, and the Republicans should be careful, because remember what happened when they were chanting "Hang Mike Pence" outside the Capitol, and they asked Donald Trump about it. What did he say? So what?
But they're right. The white Christian males are going to be lower on the list of who's going to be held accountable and who's going to be put in their place, because what Trump's argument and closing argument in JD Vance's is to white Christian men who feel disconnected and feel like they're now the victim. Donald Trump is going to help put them back in their proper place. There's a reason why they keep talking about states' rights for abortion, because states' rights has been a very effective argument over the course of American history to deny people a national standard of respect and civil rights. Right? That's why they talk about it that way.
No. Yeah. And as a political strategy, it's effective because it's a lot easier for people inside of an individual state to control what's going to happen inside their government, mostly because people have no idea what's happening in state capitals. And anybody who's ever worked or done any business in a state capital, one of the states I was in, it was the beer and wine wholesalers who controlled most of what happened in the state capitol, because they gave all the money to the legislators to have their parties. I'm not joking.
Listen,
they supplied beer and wine for the legislators to have receptions. And so they got everything they wanted. So I just think
the boxing commission in Nevada, come on.
Yes.
Right? Like local, it's all about local, right? And so here's what my solution ends up being then.
So the only way, I'll finish here. Yeah. The only way that this works is if you bring all the interests together, and the federal government has the biggest power, the biggest ability to bring people together to accomplish a national goal that states are unwilling to do for themselves.
Yes. Right.
That's how we ended Jim Crow.
You have the power. Use it. Right. Like that was a very bold move and it worked. And it also, by the way, when you do bold moves on behalf of disenfranchised people and you bring them into the system, guess where they put their loyalty? Towards the people who brought them into the system, right? To that group. It's a winning strategy for Democrats.
Look, there's a reason why Cubans were for a generation predominantly Republican, because they felt when they came over, they felt that it was the Republicans who were welcoming them when Eisenhower was president after Fidel took over Cuba, and the white rich Cubans left Cuba and came to the United States. They felt allegiance to the Republican president who was in town, who was in charge, and so they remained that.
And who also then was like, okay, I'll punish the guy who hurt you. I'll punish Fidel.
Absolutely.
And we'll punish the system that hurt you.
And then after the Bay of Pigs, which fell apart with Kennedy, there was like no allegiance between the Democrats and the Cubans. And so Cubans were Republicans for a generation. I might disagree with it, but I understand the logic.
This is the reality of how local communities operate and work. So here's my solution for if there is a Trump administration, which is that I'm just going to make sure I know like all our local police officers and our police chief, because like as the only Black and Asian family, like mixed race family for quite a big chunk of area, I'm like, that will behoove us for them to know us and know my husband as an individual and not just some random person on the street, because that's real. That's real for us. This is how it's going to go down, which is all right. We'll do the local work then.
Yep. We're going to have to, and we're going to protect ourselves, and we're all going to have to, do a lot of work to hold tight and get through what could be a long and dark period. But we still got 2 weeks left, 13 days to stop it. Don't lay back. We got time to stop it.